You're listening to Rewriting the Rules, the podcast that dares to go deeper than training. I'm Bethany Bell, creator of the Canine Dialogue Dynamics method, and this is where behaviour meets relationship, science meets the soul, and obedience takes a backseat to understanding. Let's change the conversation. Welcome back to Rewriting the Rules. Dog play is one of the most misunderstood areas in the dog world. It's talked about constantly and encouraged almost automatically, and often defended with the phrase, "they're just playing." But very rarely do we slow down and ask what play actually is, how it feels for the dog involved, and whether what we're seeing is genuinely supportive. A lot of what we label as play is judged by how it looks rather than how it feels. Fast movement, chasing, noise, and intensity are often assumed to equal happiness. But high energy does not automatically mean a positive emotional state. One of the reasons dog play is so misunderstood is that we tend to view it through a very human lens. We see excitement and assume joy. We see noise and assume fun. And we see engagement and assume consent. But dogs communicate primarily through body language, movement quality, and emotional tone, and not through how dramatic something looks. And because play is socially valued, there is often pressure to allow it, even when something about it feels off. Many people have had that moment of unease only to be dismissed because someone else seemed relaxed. But play is not defined by movement, and this is one of the most important shifts to make. Play is not defined by chasing, wrestling, or running. It's defined by emotional state. Healthy play is voluntary, pressure-free, flexible, easy to enter and easy to leave. If a dog keeps trying to escape but is re-engaged, that matters. If intensity keeps rising without relief, that matters. Those things tell us far more than speed or enthusiasm ever could. And consent and choice matter. True play involves choice on both sides. Dogs choose to initiate, dogs choose to continue, and dogs choose to stop. You will often see pauses in healthy play. Dogs will break away, shake off, sniff the ground, or simply take a breath before re-engaging. These pauses are not signs of boredom or interruption. They are signs of safety. Play that cannot pause is rarely play. And when we repeatedly mislabel stress, over-arousal, or social pressure as play, dogs pay the price. They learn that their discomfort is ignored, and they learn that disengagement does not work. And they also learn to cope in ways that later get labeled as behavioural problems. Reactivity, hyper-arousal, and social tension often have roots in play experiences that were never truly safe. And this is not about banning play. It's not about becoming fearful or overprotective. It's just about becoming more observant, more curious, and more respectful of what dogs are actually communicating. Because when play is truly healthy, it supports regulation rather than undermines it. To really understand dog play, we have to move away from what it looks like and focus on what it is. Play is not chaos, and it's not a loss of control, and it's certainly not about burning energy. At its core, play is a voluntary emotional state. It is something that dogs choose, and not something that just happens to them. Play is pressure-free. True play only exists when there is emotional safety. There is no obligation, no demand, and no coercion. A dog can opt in and opt out, and re-enter freely. If a dog feels unable to leave, then something else is happening. And this is why consent matters so much. Without it, play turns into pressure. Play is flexible and fluid. Healthy play is not rigid. Dogs change roles, they adjust their movements, they slow down and speed up, and you will often see dogs self-limiting their play. They soften their bodies, reduce force, or alter their speed to match the other dog. And this is not politeness training, it is emotional awareness. And it tells us that the dog is monitoring the interaction and responding in real time. Play has an emotional tone, and this part often gets missed. Play has a particular emotional quality. Bodies are loose, movement is bouncy rather than frantic, and expressions soften rather than harden. Even when play is energetic, there is an underlying ease to it. The moment that ease disappears, we need to pause and reassess, because play is regulating, not escalating. This is a crucial distinction. Healthy play helps dogs practice regulation. It allows excitement to rise and fall naturally. Intensity builds, then releases. Engagement happens, then rest follows. If intensity only rises and never resolves, the nervous system is not regulating. That is no longer play. And the ability to stop matters. One of the clearest signs of healthy play is how easily it stops. Dogs in true play can disengage without conflict, they can walk away without being chased, and they can rest without being re-engaged. Stopping is not failure, it is information. And dogs who feel safe stopping tend to play better when they do choose to engage. And play is not necessary for all dogs. Not all dogs enjoy play, especially social play, and that's not a problem. Some dogs prefer parallel presence. Some dogs enjoy quiet exploration. Some engage briefly and then just move on. A dog who does not play is not lacking something. They're simply communicating who they are. To understand why play is so often misunderstood, we need to look beneath behaviour and into emotional state. Because not everything that looks playful comes from the same place emotionally, and this is where confusion really starts. Play is not just excitement. Play is its own emotional state. It is a distinct emotional state that sits alongside other emotional systems such as exploration, fear, frustration, and care. When a dog is in a true play state, their nervous system is flexible. They can shift up and down in intensity, and they can respond to feedback. This is very different from being stuck in high arousal. Play and seeking are not the same thing. One of the most common confusions is between play and seeking. Seeking is about pursuit. It is about chasing, grabbing, and engaging with movement. Seeking can look playful, but it is not always emotionally light. When seeking dominates, behaviour can become single-focused, difficult to interrupt, fast and repetitive, and less socially responsive. In contrast, play remains relational. The dog is aware of the other dog. They are not just chasing movement. There are other emotions that also masquerade as play. Dogs can interact in ways that look playful while actually be driven by something else entirely. For example, over-arousal can look like excitement. Stress release can look like rough play. Frustration can look like persistent engagement, and social pressure can look like enthusiasm. But emotionally, these states feel very different for the dog. They often come with tension in the body, reduced flexibility, and an inability to disengage. When we mislabel these states as play, we miss important information. We may encourage interactions that increase stress. We may dismiss early signs of discomfort, and we may unintentionally teach dogs that their signals will be ignored. Over time, this contributes to dogs becoming reactive, socially tense, or easily overwhelmed. From a nervous system point of view, play sits in a zone where dogs feel safe enough to experiment. They can take risks without fear, and they can stop without consequence. When a dog feels unsafe, pressured, or overstimulated, the nervous system shifts into protection rather than play. And no amount of encouragement can turn that into something healthy. So instead of asking, are they playing, it's more helpful to ask, are both dogs emotionally at ease right now? So now that we understand the emotional foundation of play, we can look at how it shows up in real life. Healthy play is not about perfection. It can be energetic, noisy, and it can involve chasing, wrestling, or mock conflict. What matters is not the activity itself, but how the dogs move through it together. One of the clearest signs of healthy play is looseness. Bodies look soft rather than stiff, movements are bouncy rather than sharp, and you will often see exaggerated or slightly silly movements. Even when play is fast, there is still elasticity in the body. Stiffness, freezing, or sharp, sudden movements are signs to pause. Healthy play includes self-limiting behaviour. Dogs naturally soften their movement, they reduce force, and they adjust their speed or posture to match the other dog. You may see larger dogs lowering themselves, rolling onto their side, or slowing down to keep the interaction balanced. It's not submission, it's emotional awareness and social sensitivity. And then we have role switching. In healthy play, roles are fluid. The chaser becomes the chased, the top dog rolls away, control shifts back and forth. If one dog always controls the interaction and the other dog never does, play is likely tipped into imbalance. And pauses are a good sign. Healthy play includes breaks. Dogs stop, they shake off, they sniff, and they reset. These pauses allow the nervous system to settle before re-engaging. Play without pauses is not regulated. And then we have easy disengagement. This is one of the most important markers. In healthy play, dogs can walk away, they can rest, and they can disengage without being pursued. A dog who tries to leave and is repeatedly re-engaged is not being respected, and choice matters here. And we need to look at facial expressions and orientation. Faces in healthy play are usually soft. Mouths are relaxed, teeth may be visible but without tension, and eyes are not hard or fixed. Dogs orient to each other rather than just the movement, and when faces harden or focus narrows, it's time to intervene gently. And healthy play often ends calmly. Dogs wander off, they lie down, they engage in something else. If play constantly ends in exhaustion, snapping, or conflict, something earlier in the interaction needs reconsidering. And healthy play does not have to be constant. Dogs do not need hours of social play to be fulfilled. Many dogs play best in short, meaningful bursts. Quality matters over quantity. So what is commonly mistaken for play when it isn't? This is the part that can feel uncomfortable because many of us have watched interactions that we assumed were play, only to later realize something else was going on. Misreading play is extremely common, and it does not mean that you're careless. It means you're human. And the dog world has normalized a lot of dysregulation as just dogs being dogs. The key difference is healthy play is mutual and regulating. What gets mistaken for play is often driven by arousal, stress, frustration, or social pressure. It can look similar on the surface, but emotionally it is completely different. Over-arousal is one of the most common mislabels. It often looks like frantic movement, relentless chasing, escalating intensity, inability to pause, and difficulty in disengaging. The dog may appear excited, but the body often tells a different story. Tension through the shoulders, sharp turns and sudden movements, narrow focus, less social flexibility. Over-arousal is not joy. It is a nervous system stuck in high gear. Sometimes dogs learn to seek this state because it's stimulating, but not because it's the same as being emotionally well. And some interactions are driven mostly by seeking rather than play. It can look like obsessive chasing, fixating on movement, ignoring signals from the other dog, and continuing even when the other dog pauses. The key sign is this: the dog is engaging with movement more than engaging with the dog. This often shows up in dogs who have strong chase drives, dogs who are under-rested, or dogs who live in constant stimulation. It can turn into rehearsal for reactivity because the dog practices intensity without regulation. And dogs sometimes explode into play as a way to offload stress. This can happen after a tense walk, a stressful greeting, being restrained for long periods, or being overwhelmed in a busy environment. It might look like rough play or manic zooming, but the function is different. It's not joyful connection, it's emotional discharge. You can often spot this because it looks frantic rather than light, and the dog struggles to settle afterwards. And then there's frustration-based interaction. Frustration can look playful, especially in young dogs or dogs who struggle with impulse control. Signs include grabbing and holding, persistent body slamming, repeated mounting and humping, barking directly in another dog's face, and difficulty responding to cut-off signals. This dog is not necessarily trying to be harmful, but the emotional state is not relaxed. The dog is seeking relief from internal tension, and they are using the other dog or person as an outlet. This is one of the quickest ways to create social tension over time. And another sign is one dog is not consenting. This is the one that matters the most. A dog can be involved in an interaction and still may not be consenting. It might look like one dog constantly chasing while the other keeps trying to leave, one dog repeatedly pinning or standing over the other, the target dog hiding behind legs, under benches or near exits, and the target dog repeatedly shaking off or sniffing to disengage only to be re-engaged. Consent is shown by choice and re-engagement. A dog who keeps leaving is communicating. A dog who keeps hiding is communicating. And a dog who is repeatedly interrupted when they try to pause is not being respected. This is not play. This is social pressure. And then there's roughness that never softens. Some play is physical, and that can be fine, but healthy physical play still has a softness inside it. When it is not play, you will often see hard bodies, stiff legs, tight faces, repeated impact, no self-limiting behaviour, little to no role switching. The interaction becomes more about control than connection, even if no one is getting hurt. And over time, this teaches dogs to brace rather than relax in social contact. And then there's bully play. Some dogs have learned a style of interaction that looks confident, but is actually socially clumsy or controlling. You might see constant body checks, standing over, pushing into space, ignoring cut-off cues, and repeatedly targeting the same dog. This is not a moral failing in the dog. It usually comes from poor early social experiences, being allowed to rehearse too much intensity, and lack of guidance from humans or being rewarded socially for overwhelm. But this is still not healthy play. It is a pattern that can create fear and conflict in other dogs. Then we have play that leaves dogs worse afterwards. One of the clearest ways to assess play is not just what happens during, but what happens after. Healthy play often leaves dogs feeling calm, softer, more settled, socially satisfied. Dysregulated interaction often leaves dogs more frantic, more reactive, unable to settle, searching for more stimulation, snappy or irritated. If a dog constantly spirals after play, that is not enrichment, that is nervous system overload. And we have to be mindful of the myth of they will work it out. This is a very common belief. Sometimes dogs do resolve small social misunderstandings, but many dogs do not work it out safely. What they often do instead is shut down, tolerate, escalate, start avoiding other dogs, or learning that their signals do not matter. Humans are part of the environment. Guidance is part of ethical care. Not controlling and not policing, but calmly supporting safety and choice. And if you're not sure, a simple, helpful rule is this. If you cannot see pauses, role switching, self-limiting behaviour and ease, assume it needs support. You can step in kindly, you can create space, and you can help dogs reset. And if it was truly play, it will return naturally once both dogs feel settled. But we also need to look at dog-to-dog play versus human-to-dog play. And this part matters because a lot of what people call play is not actually play in the emotional sense. It might be a game, an activity, an outlet, a routine, or stimulation, but play is a particular state. So we're going to separate three things that often get bundled together: dog-to-dog play, dog-to-human play, and human-led games and activities. They can overlap, but they are not the same, and confusing them is one of the reasons why so many dogs end up dysregulated. Let's start with dog-to-dog play. What makes this unique? Dog-to-dog play is a social conversation. It is negotiated in real time through microsignals, body orientation, pauses, and adjustments. When it's healthy, it has mutual choice, self-limiting behaviour, role switching, pauses and resets, easy disengagement, and a sense of lightness even when it's energetic. Dog-to-dog play is not just movement, it's relational. A key point here is that social play is not a universal need for every single dog. Some dogs genuinely enjoy it. Some dogs only enjoy it with very specific dogs. And some dogs do not enjoy it at all and prefer parallel presence. A dog not wanting dog-to-dog play is not antisocial or deprived. They are communicating preferences. And then we have dog-to-human play. Does this exist? Well, yes, sometimes, but it's not automatic. Dogs can absolutely experience playful connection with humans, but it only becomes true play when the dog's emotional state is playful and pressure-free, not driven by compulsion, expectation, or arousal loops. Dog-to-human play tends to look like spontaneous invitations, bouncy movements, brief light engagement. The dog chooses to stop and re-engage, soft bodies and soft faces, and the dog staying socially aware of you, not locked into an object. The biggest difference is that dog-to-human play is often more subtle and shorter. Many dogs do not want prolonged, intense play sessions with humans. They want moments of shared joy, and then they want to move on. A lot of dogs enjoy presence, shared rituals, and calm connections rather than they enjoy games. And then we have human-led games and activities. Games are not automatically play. This is where the misunderstanding really lives. Fetch, tug, flirt poles, chasing toys, laser pointers, ball launchers, squeakers, even keep away games can look like play. But emotionally, they can be driven by seeking, predatory motor patterns, frustration, anticipation, compulsive loops, and over-arousal. These activities can be enjoyable for some dogs, but they can also create dysregulation very quickly, especially in sensitive, reactive, anxious, or evilly overstimulated dogs. So the question is not, is this a fun game? The question is, what state does this create in my dog, and what state does it leave behind? Take fetch, for example. Fetch often activates a pursuit loop, and it has potential positives. It can be enjoyable, it can create routine, it can be used as structured movement in a safe space, and it can support confidence in some dogs if it stays calm and choice-led. But it comes with common problems. It can easily become repetitive and compulsive. It can create frantic anticipation. It can build frustration if the dog is not allowed to pause. And it can reinforce scanning and fixation on movement. It can produce a dog who cannot settle afterwards. Signs that fetch is not supporting the dog is that the dog cannot disengage, they stare, shake, whine, or demand, they ignore their environment, and they escalate over time, and often they struggle to settle afterwards. In those cases, it is not play, it's a stimulation cycle. And then we can look at tug games, because tug can be beautiful when it's relational. A healthy tug game looks like loose bodies, the dog choosing to start and stop, frequent micro pauses, you softening and matching the dog staying emotionally connected to you, and the dog is able to disengage easily. But tug can be unhelpful when it turns into gripping with a hard body. There is constant tension with no softening. The dog cannot release the toy without conflict. The dog becomes frantic or vocal in a distressed way, and you can see escalation rather than regulation. Tug is not automatically harmful, but it is not automatically play. The emotional tone tells you what it is. And what about flirt poles and chase games? These are very powerful. They heavily activate pursuit and predation patterns. For some dogs, that is enjoyable and manageable in small doses. For others, it's like pouring petrol on a nervous system that already runs hot. The risks include creating more scanning for movement in the environment, increasing frustration and explosive reactions, strengthening a dog's desire to chase, and making self-regulation harder afterwards. A dog who becomes more reactive to joggers, bikes, squirrels, or other dogs after lots of chase games is not being high drive. They are being trained into a nervous system pattern. Even if you never intended for that, the brain learns through repetition. And then we have squeaky toys. Squeakers can trigger prey pattern and arousal spikes. For some dogs, they are fine in moderation, and for others, they create frantic, sharp intensity that does not resolve well. If squeakers make your dog frantic, tense, or snappy, it is not enrichment for that dog, it is overstimulation. We also have this keep away and teasing game. This often creates frustration and can erode trust. It can look playful, but emotionally it can create agitation, demand behaviour, mouthiness, conflict around objects. It also places the dog in a state of wanting, but not being able to resolve. That is not a calm nervous system experience. And the big reframe is this: what leaves the dog better afterwards? A simple way to evaluate any game is this: after the activity, does your dog soften, settle, feel content, and return to baseline easily? Or do they pace, demand more, seem edgy, become reactive, or struggle to switch off? If the activity leaves your dog worse, it is not supporting their well-being, even if it looks fun in the moment. Play and healthy activity should leave a dog more regulated, not less. And ignoring this is where many people accidentally increase reactivity. Many dogs become reactive not because they were bad with other dogs, but because their nervous system is repeatedly practiced in high arousal, scanning, chasing, frustration loops, and intense anticipation. So they begin to respond to the world in that state. Then they see a dog, a bike, a person, a squirrel, a sound, and their brain is already primed for intensity. This is one of the reasons outlets can backfire. So what can we do instead? We can still use healthier human options that are still fun. Not everything has to be a high-intensity game. Many dogs benefit far more from sniffing walks, gentle exploration, freedom to choose pace and direction where it's safe, calm play invitations that end before intensity rises, simple shared rituals like "shall we go this way?" and let the dog decide, and activities that build emotional steadiness. This is all still fun. It's just a different kind of fun. It's a fun that builds resilience. And from a CDD perspective, the goal is not to create a dog who is constantly entertained. It is to support a dog who is emotionally steady, connected, able to settle, and able to enjoy the world without needing constant intensity. So even when we do games, we do them with dialogue, observation, and respect the thresholds. It's not more, but it is more awareness. One of the most deeply embedded beliefs in the dog world is the idea that dogs need to burn energy. That if a dog is reactive, restless, excitable, or struggling to settle, the solution is more activity, more play, more stimulation, more outlets. And this belief is everywhere. And while it sounds logical, and it can be true in some cases, it's often quietly making things worse. Dogs do not store energy like a battery. They don't build up unused energy that needs to be emptied. What they build instead are nervous system patterns. Every activity teaches the body and brain something. It teaches rhythm. It teaches expectation. It teaches a state. If most of a dog's activity lives in high arousal, the nervous system becomes very good at high arousal. This does not lead to calm. It leads to a lower threshold for intensity. For many dogs, especially sensitive dogs, high-intensity outlets do not relieve pressure. They amplify it. Chasing, frantic play, repetitive games, and constant novelty can keep the nervous system in a heightened state for long periods of time. This can look like difficulty settling, restlessness in the home, reactivity on walks, demand behaviour, short tempers with other dogs, and emotional vulnerability. The dog is not under-exercised, they are overstimulated. And there's a difference between movement and regulation. Movement is not the problem. How movement is experienced matters. Movement that supports regulation is allowing the dog to choose pace, including natural pauses, involving sniffing and exploration, and it ends before intensity tips over, leaving the dog softer afterwards. Movement that undermines regulation is repetitive and compulsive, escalates intensity without any resolution, prioritizes output over emotional state, and leaves the dog more wired. This distinction is rarely talked about, but it is crucial. And when we treat play or games as outlet for behaviour, we often miss what the dog is actually needing. A dog who is anxious does not need more stimulation. A dog who is frustrated does not need more chasing, and a dog who is overwhelmed does not need more intensity. They need safety, they need predictability, and they need a space to regulate. Outlets that ignore emotional state simply give the nervous system more of what it is already stuck in. And it can give the illusion of tired dogs. A dog can be physically exhausted and still emotionally dysregulated. You might see a dog who collapses but cannot truly rest. A dog who sleeps lightly and wakes easily. A dog who seems wired but tired. And a dog who is reactive despite lots of exercise. Physical tiredness does not equal emotional well-being. In fact, chronic overexercise can reduce resilience and increase stress hormones over time. So what does build calm capacity? Well, calm is not something you drain into existence. It's something you build. And this happens through predictable routines, emotional safe interactions, natural rest, low-pressure exploration, choice-led activity, and moments of connection without expectation. Dogs learn calm by experiencing it, not by being exhausted into it. Many dogs labelled as high drive are not broken or difficult. They are simply dogs whose nervous systems have been trained into constant activation. When we stop feeding that cycle and start supporting regulation instead, behaviour often softens naturally, not because the dog has been controlled, but because they finally feel settled enough to cope. And one of the most important things we can do for dogs is to let go of the idea that they should all want the same things. We need to remember, individual dogs, individual needs. Play is not a universal requirement. Social play is not a measure of well-being, and a dog who does not enjoy play is not missing out. Dogs are individuals with their own temperaments, histories, nervous systems, and preferences. And when we ignore that, we often create the very problems that we are trying to avoid. Not all dogs enjoy social play. Some dogs genuinely love dog-to-dog play. They seek it out. They regulate well within it. They leave interactions calmer than they started. But other dogs only enjoy play with specific dogs, enjoy very short interactions, prefer parallel presence, and find social play overwhelming or even unnecessary. And all of these are normal. A dog who prefers to walk alongside another dog, sniff nearby, or simply share space is still being social. Connection does not always look loud. And things like age, genetics, and personality matter. Puppies often experiment with play as part of development. Adolescents can struggle with regulation and impulse control, and adult dogs often become much more selective. Senior dogs may prefer calm connection over physical play. Breed traits can influence tendencies, but they do not override individual personality. And past experiences matter too. Dogs with a history of being overwhelmed, chased, or ignored when they tried to disengage often become wary of play. And that's part of learning. Issues like trauma and sensitivity often do change the picture. Dogs who have experienced stress, trauma, or chronic overwhelm often have a narrower window for play. They may struggle to regulate arousal, find unpredictability stressful, need longer recovery times, and prefer quieter interactions. For these dogs, being pressured into play can be actively harmful. Supporting them often means giving permission to opt out. And we have the social pressure problem. There is an enormous pressure on dogs to be good with other dogs. This often unintentionally translates into being expected to play, being expected to tolerate rough interactions, and being expected to cope without support. But coping is not the same as enjoying. A dog who tolerates play is not thriving, and forcing sociability often creates fear, reactivity, or shutdown later on. And it comes down to respecting the dog in front of you. Ethical care means listening. If your dog avoids play, hides behind you, stays on the edges, chooses sniffing over interaction, disengages quickly, they are communicating preferences. And honouring that builds trust. Trying to override it erodes safety. What can fulfillment look like without play? Because dogs who do not enjoy play are not deprived. Fulfillment can come from exploration, sniffing, problem solving, companionship, shared routines, and quiet presence. These dogs often thrive when pressure is removed. They don't need fixing, they just need understanding. And we need to work on letting go of comparison. Comparing dogs creates unrealistic expectations. The dogs who play wildly in the park is not better adjusted than the dog who quietly walks alongside their person. They are simply different, and different is allowed. When we look at play through the CDD lens, the focus shifts away from managing behaviour and towards understanding communication. Play becomes less about what dogs should be doing and more about what they are telling us, because play, when it is genuine, is a form of dialogue. We view play as communication, not performance. In a relationship-led approach, play is not something we arrange, engineer, or push for. It's something that emerges when dogs feel safe enough, regulated enough, and emotionally available. Dogs communicate through how they invite, how they respond, how they pause, and how they disengage. All of that is information. When we treat play as something dogs perform for enrichment, we stop listening to that information. So observation comes before interpretation. One of the core principles of CDD is observation without agenda. Instead of deciding in advance that dogs need to play, we watch how they approach interactions, how quickly they escalate, how easily they disengage, and how they recover afterwards. We let the dog show us what supports them. And this removes pressure and replaces it with curiosity. Dialogue is ongoing. It's not verbal. Dialogue does not require words all the time. When a dog pauses, that is dialogue. When a dog softens, that is dialogue. And when a dog disengages, that is also dialogue. Our role is to respond, not to override. Sometimes the response is allowing play to continue, sometimes it is gently creating space, and sometimes it is redirecting it into something calmer. None of it is punishment, it's relational support. Choice sits at the centre of ethical play. Dogs choose whether to engage, they choose how long to stay, and they choose when to stop. When we honour those choices, dogs learn that communication works. When we ignore them, dogs learn that escalation is the only way to be heard. And this is one of the quiet ways the activity develops. So we're looking at less control and more attunement. CDD does not mean being permissive. It means being attuned. It means noticing when play is tipping from regulation into overwhelm and stepping in calmly before things unravel. It means trusting that if play is healthy, it will return naturally once dogs feel safe again. And if it does not return, that is information too. And play that emerges is different from play that is pushed. Play that emerges naturally tends to be shorter, lighter, more balanced, and more regulating. Play that is pushed tends to be repetitive, intense, expectation-driven, and dysregulating. CDD invites us to wait rather than force, and waiting often creates much better outcomes. And it's relationship first, always. When play is viewed through relationship rather than outcome, something shifts. We stop asking whether dogs are playing enough, and we start asking whether they feel safe enough. And when dogs feel safe, play often just takes care of itself. When we misunderstand play, the impact does not stay contained within those moments. It ripples outwards. Play that is misread, pushed, or allowed to escalate quietly shapes how dogs experience the world, how safe they feel socially, and how their nervous system learns to respond to stimulation. And this is why play matters far more than a lot of people realize. When play goes wrong, behaviour suffers. Dogs who are repeatedly overwhelmed in the name of play often learn that subtle communication does not work. They learn that pausing does not stop the interaction, turning away does not create space, and soft signals are ignored, so they escalate. That escalation later gets labelled as reactivity, poor impulse control, or behaviour problems, when in reality it's just a dog adapting to not being heard. Dysregulation is often practiced rather than being innate. Many dogs who struggle with arousal are not born that way. They have practiced intensity repeatedly. They have rehearsed chasing without resolution, stimulation without recovery, engagement without consent, and excitement without regulation. Over time, the nervous system becomes very good at being activated and very bad at being settled. This is not a flaw in the dog, it is a learnt pattern. When play is safe, voluntary, and regulating, something very different happens. Dogs learn that they can enter and leave interactions freely, their communication is respected, intensity can rise and fall naturally, and connection does not require overwhelm. And this is what builds emotional resilience. Dogs who experience healthy play often cope better with social situations, recover faster from stress, show less reactivity, and feel more confident saying no, because they trust that no is enough. And this is not about perfection. It's not about analysing every single interaction or becoming anxious around play. Dogs are allowed to have awkward moments. They're allowed to misread each other occasionally. Life is not perfectly regulated. What matters is the overall pattern. Are dogs genuinely supported rather than pushed? Are pauses respected rather than interrupted? Is play leaving dogs calmer more often than not? And that's enough. Play is not something dogs owe us. It's not proof of happiness. And it's not something we need to manufacture. It is a byproduct of emotional safety. When dogs feel safe, regulated, and respected, play emerges naturally in the ways that suit them. And when it does not, that absence is not a problem to fix, it's just information to listen to. When we stop asking whether dogs are playing enough and start asking whether they feel safe enough, that's when things begin to change. Behaviour softens, trust deepens, and dogs stop needing to shout to be heard. So thank you for slowing down with me. Thank you for listening differently. And thank you for rewriting the rules with me. I'll see you very soon.